Joe Anderson and Clopine of Pure Financial Advisors have the answers to your retirement plan. This is your money, your wealth.
Did you know if you retired less than 30 years ago, you probably had a worry-free retirement? They called it the golden age of retirement. Unfortunately, that's not today. Stick around for the next half an hour. We're going to tell you exactly what you need to do to get you back to the golden age. Welcome back to Your Money, Your Wealth. My name's Joe Anderson. I'm a certified financial planner, president of Pure Financial Advisors. I'm with the big man, as always, Big Al Clopine. He'll be joining us momentarily. Got a lot of things to discuss. We got an interview today. I want to talk to an expert when it comes to the readiness of retirement. You'll be shocked to hear that most people are not necessarily ready. That's what's on my mind today. So if you take a look 30 years ago, when people retired, they were able to retire in their early 60s because of three main points. One is that they had defined benefit plans. They had the big pension plans. They also had Social Security, and they had shorter life expectancy. And guess what? With those defined benefit plans, those big pension plans, most of them also covered health care. Guess what's happening today? When you need the income the most, it's disappearing. The defined benefit plans, the big plans, they are now replaced by the 401k plan with very small balances. Without the defined benefit plans, we're on our own to save money, so we're not saving, and then again, we're on our own for health care, and we all know where health care costs are going. Plus, here's the stinger, is that we have longer life expectancies. We're living a lot longer, so we need the income more, and we're also living a lot longer, so we need health care more. This is an issue that we have to tackle, and we can do it as long as we get educated. Let's bring in the big man to start off the show to figure out what we should do to get back to the golden age of retirement. Big Al? The golden age, my friend. Wouldn't it be nice if you could just retire, get the gold watch, and then live happily ever after?
Well, you're right. And Joe, I would say there's one more factor, which is the baby boomers, which are retiring right now. They didn't do a great job of saving. And so we're going to dive into this show in terms of how to create your own retirement readiness plan, because this is what you need to do to make sure you can retire successfully. And I'll go through the 4 steps. It's actually not that complicated. The first thing is to calculate your retirement plan. In other words, how much that you need, what's your number to get to the retirement so that you can live on your income stream. And then number 2 would be, in most cases, we need to make improvements. How to improve, how to make sure you get on track for retirement. Then come up with a plan and then stick to it. So Joe, it sounds simple enough, but there's a lot of steps to make sure we're on track for retirement.
Well, it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right.
Just with
That's
everything in life,
yeah,
right?
Yeah,
you know, I think everyone knows how to get in shape. It's January, right? That's the #1 resolution. Hey, I want to lose some weight. Well, yeah, you got to get some sleep. You got to hit the gym, and you got to eat right. But guess what? Life gets in the way. It's the same thing as your financial health. So you just want to make sure that you just take a look at some simple steps here to make sure that you can do the things that you want to do long term. So let's kind of dive in. So your readiness. So there's some things that you want to consider if you're ready for retirement. Let's dive in. Number 1 is you got to figure out exactly what you want to spend. Determine your desired retirement spending. If you're spending $5,000 a month, if you want to continue to spend that $5,000 a month, that's what you have to figure out. You have to assess your fixed income sources. This is your Social Security, your pensions, if you have real estate, your real estate income. Then you have to calculate your shortfall. So if you have a desired income, and then you also have fixed income coming in from Social Security, you subtract the 2, you're going to have a shortfall. Then you do a simple calculation to figure out what your number is. We've all seen the commercials before to say, what is your magic number? How much money do you need to maintain a lifestyle? We've gone through this on the show many times, but guess what? 90% of people do not understand their number. If you get this simple calculation done right, you are way ahead of the game. This is the first step. Hey, Big Al, why don't you show us exactly the steps that we need to do to make sure that you find that magic number?
I sure will, Joe, and I think this is such an important thing, and we have done this before, but it's important that you understand how this works. So step number 1 is to figure out your spending. So I'm going to just say you decide you want to spend $80,000 in retirement. And a lot of people have no idea how much they're spending, and if that's you, start at least with your net paycheck. And if you're spending all of that paycheck, then that gives you an idea how much you're spending on a monthly basis, weekly basis, however often you get paid. Now, if you have a little extra savings, right, then you're spending a little bit less. But let's say you decide $80,000 is what you want to spend. And if you don't know what it's going to be in retirement, for right now, assume that your spending in retirement is the same. It may be less, it may be more, but let's start with that. $80,000 is the spending. Now, you want to look at your fixed income sources like Social Security, like pensions if you have them, like rental income if you have rental properties. So let's say that number is $40,000, okay? You want to spend $80,000, you got $40,000 of fixed income. So that means you are short. You're short $40,000, and that's okay. This $40,000 is to come from your investments. So what we do to figure out what kind of nest egg that you need to create a lifestyle, to create $40,000 of income, we're going to multiply this by 25. And realize this is a rule of thumb. It could be more, it could be less, but this will at least give you an idea. $40,000 times $25,000 is $1 million. So if this is you, that is your number. That's what you're trying to obtain in your savings.
Yeah, well, when people look at that number, Al, they freak out.
They do, I
Because
agree.
if you look at the average balance of a retirement account of someone in their 50s or 60s, it's $100,000. $110,000, I think, is another study that I saw.
Right.
Think about it, $110,000 is a lot of money, but guess what? That's $400 a month of income. It's not nearly going to be enough. So here, it's never too late to start. Let's take a look at, all right, if I'm going to save in my 401k plan, what are some of the things, like start right now, but if you look at the compound of interest, and if you look at continual, consistent savings, the numbers grow fairly quickly. Let's take a look at that, Al.
Joe, yeah, let's say that you're 60 years old and you haven't saved anything. So, of course, we say this all the time, and it's true. Don't delay, start now. Here's what can happen in 10 years. Let's say you save $1,500 and it's a 401k or 403b, something like that. Your employer is matching up to $300, so that's $1,800 per month going into your account. Let's just say you're earning 7%. Now you got $312,000, which, believe it or not, is ahead of most people out there. It's ahead of the averages. Now, that's not that $1 million number, and so maybe you're not going to live on the lifestyle that I just went over. But what about if you're 50, you haven't started? You still have maybe 20 years if you work till 70. Here you go, 20 years, same numbers, same $1,500, $300 match. Now you've got $938,000. Now you got that $1 million that we're talking about. And it's just saving incrementally each and every month. Now, what about if you have 30 years? Now, this gets pretty interesting, right? Because now you can generate about $2.2 million of retirement savings to create a lifestyle that's going to be actually better than what you're wanting. So realize that no matter where you're at, start now, because it's never too late.
Where you at? Where you at, Al?
Where you at?
Where you at? It doesn't matter where you're at. So you just got to start right now and start saving some money. I know these are just examples. These are assumptions that we're making, but you have to start right now. Hey, we're going to take a short break. When we come back from the break, we're going to get Dr. What's his name? Anthony Webb. He's a senior research economist from the Boston University. So stick around for that. I'm going to ask him some questions about the readiness of retirement. You'll be shocked to hear what he's got to say. Show's called Your Money, It's Your Wealth. We'll be back in just a second. Welcome back to the program. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Joe Anderson here, Big Al Clopine over there. Hanging out today. Hopefully you're enjoying the show. We're talking about, are you ready for retirement? Hopefully you are, but most of you are not. And here's the sad facts. Here's three things that is going to happen. Is that A, you are going to have to face the facts that you are going to be broke in retirement. Hopefully that is not the plan. Two is that you're going to have to save more money, hence spend less. C is that you're going to have to work longer. 70 is probably going to be the new retirement age. So if you can spend a little bit less, save a little bit more, work a little bit longer, I think you're going to get on track for retirement. Stick around. We got a great interview coming up with Dr. Anthony Webb from Boston College talking about the readiness of retirement. But before we get to him, let's go to the true-false question.
The IRS does not allow me to withdraw funds from my IRA while I'm working. And the answer to that is false. You can withdraw funds from your IRA account, but we don't recommend it. Why? because those funds are for your retirement. They're not for spending. They're not for buying a new car right now. They're not for buying a house right now. They're for your retirement. So you are allowed to take money out of your IRA anytime that you want to. Realize that you will pay taxes on those dollars, and if you're working, it'll put you in a higher tax bracket, plus you'll pay penalties if you're under 59.5. That penalty is 10% federal, 2.5% state. And very often we see that when people take money out of their IRAs while they're still working below 59.5, the tax rate with penalties is 50% or more. So don't do it.
Yeah, that's a problem, Al, is that they use it as a piggy bank in a lot of cases, is that, hey, I want to buy the car, so they go to the IRA. It's your money. Of course you can tap into it anytime you want, but do you want to pay 50% potentially on those dollars? So our advice is don't do it. Let's switch gears a little bit here. We got a interview with a very smart individual, Dr. Anthony Webb. He's a senior research executive at Boston College, and he's done a study about the readiness of retirement. So Dr. Webb, welcome to the program.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Hey, so here's the deal. In your latest study is that it's a very high number. Almost 50 or 60% of people that are approaching retirement are not necessarily ready to create a retirement income that they're accustomed to.
Well, we've known from previous calculations that the number was high. The striking thing was that it hadn't bounced back much with the economic recovery. So in 2010, at the height of the crisis, sort of 53% of households were unprepared. In 2013, it was still 52%.
So looking forward here, I mean, is it looking better? Is it looking bleak? I mean, tell me, what can retirees face here in the future?
The trouble is that the subsequent birth cohorts are facing bigger and bigger headwinds. They're facing increased longevity. They're facing higher healthcare costs. They're saving in a low interest rate environment, and the benefits that they'll get from social security relative to their income are going down. And all of these things make it harder and harder for succeeding birth cohorts.
Well, what is your biggest concern for retirees in the future?
So the biggest threat is really that one half of all households at any point in time aren't even in a pension plan. Now, for the other half who typically have a 401k plan, they have many opportunities to make missteps. So they can invest inappropriately, they can cash out on job change, they can be subject to high fees. And all of these things eat away at the pot of money that the household accumulates over its working life.
So you take a look at higher health costs, they're on their own, fees are eating up from their 401k plan, so there's a lot of things that people should be aware of. I guess, what are the takeaways from your research? You spent a lot of time here. What should our viewers take away from your research?
So one of the big unknowns is what's going to happen to interest rates and rates of return. That in the long run, over the last 75 years, our investment in the stock market has yielded very high returns. There's a lot of economists who argue that we cannot look forward to such high returns in the future. And that means that if households want to have the same standard of living in retirement, they really need to save more.
Dr. Webb, I really appreciate you joining us today. Really good information. When you spend that much time studying things, Al, It doesn't look great, but there's some positives and there's some negatives, right? So if you look at the negatives, we're living longer, right? Healthcare costs, Social Security is not nearly covering the amount of income that people need to maintain their lifestyle. But on the second side of things is that people have control. They can control their own destiny if they take some action and they put a plan together.
People have to realize that there's a lot of things that they can do. And so let's get into that. I mean, it seems a little bit bleak what we're hearing, but what can you actually do? And number one is you can work longer. And what that does by working longer is you'll have more years of income, obviously, and more years of savings. So you can create additional savings. Your Social Security checks will be higher. The longer you wait, you can start to take them at age 62, but by age 70, the final date, they'll be the highest they would possibly be. So waiting is good. And of course, you're not going to have as many years in retirement, for better or for worse, so you don't have to fund that retirement near as long. So that is really kind of number one, is that you'll need to work longer.
Well,
probably.
I mean, that's a great point, because I think that has to be in the mindset. Because if you take a look, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it was like, here, I want to retire at 55, I want to retire at 60, or I'm going to retire as soon as I collect my Social Security check at 62. That's just not the reality today, because people don't necessarily have enough money. You're going to have to work a little bit longer, and as Al pointed out, so many positives. Your Social Security checks go up, you can save more money, and on the downside is that you'll have shorter life expectancy, so your money's not going to run out.
Well, that is true. So let's go right into the next thing, which is saving more. And I think we all know this. This is kind of like going on a diet and exercising and eating better food. But in terms of saving, here's a couple tips. Pay yourself first. Most people wait till they spend, they pay for all their bills, and they see what's left over and they put that into savings. Well, guess what? You never have any savings. Instead, have the money go into savings first through a 401k, through a 403b, or an automatic withdrawal out of your checking account. And those automatic savings plans are best, like a 401k, because there's no choice. You go ahead and do it. If you have a 401k, make sure you utilize that employer match, because that adds additional money to your situation. And then every time that you get a raise, or maybe a car loan goes away or something like that, increase your savings, because it's hard to go from zero to saving $1,500 per month, as we talked about in the last segment. But maybe you can save $100, $200, $300 a month right now, and then $400 next year, and so on. So you build up to it, because a lot of times when people hear about, they have to save $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month, they go, well, there's no way, I can't do it. So they don't even get started.
Well, and then here's the problem, Al, is that, okay, well, let's say if you haven't started to save, now you're starting to save $100, $200, $500 a month. I don't care what it is. You have to invest it properly. Because if you get a 2% rate of return versus a 4% rate of return versus a 7% rate of return, this is going to make a world of difference. Now, here's what we usually run into is that, all right, well, if I've never saved before, I really don't understand how to invest, so I'm just going to be very conservative with my money. Well, let me tell you something here. If you're very conservative with your money, you're losing money safely is what's happening, because inflation and taxes will take that money from you. You've got to put into a long-term mindset is saying, all right, well, here, as I save this money, this is going to be there for me to create the income that I need for the next 10, 20, 30 years. So you have to make sure that you invest it properly. If you have a 2% rate of return versus a 7% rate of return, it could be millions of dollars in your pocket. That's the differential. And I want you to kind of show our viewers just the difference of a couple of percent makes on your money.
Well, that's exactly right, Joe, and I think this will be an eye-opener for a lot of people. Take a look at this. What if you earn 2%? So that's kind of what a treasury bill, 10-year treasury bill pays right now. What if you do that for 30 years, and what if you save $15,000 per year? What will you have at the end of the 30 years? $600,000. Not bad, but when you consider this, 30 years at $15,000 a year, $450,000 of that is your own money, so your earnings are only $150,000. You're not going to get very far with those kinds of investments. So the better way to go is to have a globally diversified investments, which include some stocks, some bonds, some international, some domestic, some large company, some small company. And just so you understand, the last 100 years of the stock market, it's gone up about 10% per year. Now, you can't count on that every year. And so what I'm showing you is, what if you could earn 8%? Because you're not going to have 100% stocks. Same idea, $15,000 per year, 30 years. How much do you have? You have $1.7 million. It's a whole different story. But here's something that you may not know, is as you go into mutual funds, a lot of these mutual funds have high costs, and sometimes they're 2% or more. So what if that 8% is really more like 6% because you're paying the mutual fund company 2% just to own that investment? Well, look what happens. Instead of $1.7 million, you're going to end up with $1.2 million. It's a $500,000 differential. So make sure you not only are invested properly, but you have low-cost investments to boot.
500 grand, you got to pay Wall Street, right? That's a lot of money. Hey, stick around. When we get back from the break, I'm going to get into a strategy, all right, that's fairly, I would say, unique, that you might not have heard of before when it comes to creating your retirement income. All right, so stick around for that. Show's called Your Money, Your Wealth. Don't go anywhere.
Last year, I didn't have any Roth conversions, and I think I had some room to get to the top of my income bracket, tax bracket. And this year, I had a required minimum distribution, and I'm wondering if it would be a good idea between now and 31 December to do something to get me to the top of the income tax bracket that I probably will be in.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Joe Anderson, Big Al here. Hey, Al, that guy looks kind of familiar, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he's in our opening stinger, huh?
I think he is.
Hey, I actually have some additional insight. First of all, this is Mike. Hey, Mike, how you doing? But the reason in your particular case, and maybe some of the viewers, where we didn't recommend a Roth conversion to fill up the 25% bracket is you have rental property, and rental property at certain income levels allows you to take a deduction. So if we did a Roth conversion in your case, it adds enough income so that you can no longer deduct those rental losses, and your effective rate on doing a conversion is way too high. So the answer is, in your case, no.
But in other cases, it might be. So each case is a little bit different.
You
so
bet.
you want to make sure that you take a look and work with a qualified professional to see, all right, well, what makes sense for me? Because Roth IRA conversions, in Al and I's opinion, is one of the best gifts the IRS has ever given us, because then you can parlay tax-free wealth for the rest of your life, the rest of your spouse's life, and then guess what, to the kids' life. Hey, I want to get into another technique when it comes to retirement readiness, because we just talked to the good professor, Mr. Dr. Webb, and there's a lot of things that are affecting retirees, right? Because we're living a lot longer, people haven't saved enough money. And so here's the three things, and I said this before the break, is that you're going to have to say, you know what, I'm fine, I'm going to retire broke. That is not the solution. You're going to have to save more, spend less, and then you're going to have to work longer. Here's another tip. You might want to tap into your home equity. There's a couple of things that you can do here, because here in Southern California, one of the biggest assets that you own is your home. And so if you do have a lot of home equity, there's some things that you might want to consider. You might want to downsize to a less expensive home. So if you have a $500,000 home, $1 million home, guess what? You can move to the good state of Minnesota, where I'm from, and you can buy a nice little mansion for about $45,000. But for most of you, that's probably not in the cards, but then you can have a little bit nicer income from that equity. There's another thing I want to talk about, but let's go to the true false before I do it.
If I move to a foreign country upon retirement, I can avoid federal and California taxation. The answer to that is false, and this is widely thought that that's the case. But as long as you're a U.S. citizen, it doesn't matter where you live. You're going to be taxed in the United States. And by the way, if you leave the United States from California, you're going to be taxed in California too. So the only way to get out of paying those taxes is to renounce your citizenship. So you will pay taxes in the U.S. You will get a tax credit, though, for taxes you pay in another country.
Here's the deal, folks. The last thing that I want to get into is looking at a reverse mortgage. We're going to spend next week talking about reverse mortgages. We're going to bring experts in to talk about reverse mortgages because they're coming more and more popular. HUD regulates them now. They used to be the Wild West about 10, 20 years ago. It's super expensive, but now some of you, it's going to be a last resort where you might want to consider it. You could create tax-free income from that equity of your home. That's what we're going to get into next week, so don't make sure you miss it. All right, that's it for us today. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. If you ever want to come in, sit down with Big Al or myself. We give a free financial assessment. It's time to get ready. It's time to get prepared. It's time to get a plan of action to make sure that you can have the successful retirement that you've dreamed of. Call our number, 888-994-6257. Go to purefinancial.com. Get all the information that you need. For Big Al Clopine, I'm Joe Anderson. You just watched another episode of Guess What? Your Money, Your Wealth.